We did take that question to Twitter of who the biggest threat to OU was in the World Series here. And a lot of people said
Mm-hmm.
Stanford simply because that's who OU matches up with first. You got to get past that team first. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people said Florida State. They may have the best pitcher in the tournament in Kat Sandercock. A lot of people said OSU. There's, like you
Whoa,
mentioned,
whoa!
OSU. You think you disagree?
You think that the best pitcher in the Women's College World Series is not Jordy Ball? I mean, I know that Sandercock did just throw a perfect game in the regional, but I mean,
Yeah, I
let's
mean
start with.
it's difference of opinion. I think with Jordy Ball, I don't think it's like a clear cut. She's the number one. I think she is the number one when she's at the peak of her game. Uh,
That's
but
fair. That's fair.
but sometimes she doesn't have it, and that's okay. Lots of pitchers
Mm-hmm.
don't always have it. Like Nicole May, towards the tail end of Saturday, didn't have it. So that happens. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think Jordy Ball, and especially once we see the next 2 years of her career unfold, I think she'll start to get that consistency. And obviously, she's already a
Mm-hmm.
legend now, but she will certainly cement herself there. So I don't know. There's arguable, that Kat Sandercock might be the best pitcher on the field in Oklahoma City. So it's possible. I think a lot of people like that. I think a lot of people like what OSU is doing. They really
Mm-hmm.
didn't play a close game against Oregon. And after losing something like 11 of 13 game goals going into the tournament, and they seem to have kind of found their rhythm a little bit. Now, Kelly Maxwell struggled against OU the times that she was on the mound, but they've got some other pitchers there that they gave us trouble. Their lineup was giving OU trouble. So there's definitely some teams here that could certainly threaten OU, but I'm going to have to agree with you on this one. Tennessee, I think, is the biggest threat. Maybe it's a little bit of the unknown factor because they're one of the few teams in this field here that OU hasn't played yet. But
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee made easy work of Texas over the weekend. I know that
Yeah,
was one that you thought, hey, Texas is going to upset them. Turned out to not be all that
I did. I
close.
thought it was going to be competitive, and it really wasn't.
Yeah, and so it's interesting that you have OU and Tennessee in the top half of the bracket, meaning that one of those teams is going to have to work their way out of the losers bracket if you want to rematch in the championship series, because you
Mm-hmm.
do recall that the loser of one of those games on Saturday is going to flip over into the bottom side of the bracket, so there's going to be some mixing up. So you could still see an OU Tennessee final series there.
And Adam, speaking of dominant elite pitchers that are part of this tournament, I don't want it to go unsaid. And Oklahoma fans are better be in for a really good performance from what Stanford's going to throw out there on the mound on Thursday. So, like I alluded to, the best two pitchers on Stanford's roster, Oklahoma didn't face them, earlier in the season during that February 10th matchup. And when you look statistically at what Stanford's pitching staff is able to do, it's one of the best in the country, fourth in the ERA in 1.55, 10th in shutouts. And they're also a very well coached, very solid defensive team as well with a 9.78 fielding percentage. So I fully expect the Cardinal to trot out number 24. She's a 6 foot tall, big girl, powerful arm. Number 24, Najari Kennedy, 16-1 on the season, 29 appearances, 22 starts. And Adam, outside of the 0.48 ERA, the thing that sticks out to me the most is the way that this girl is able to command the softball. 193 strikeouts to just 19 walks on the year. So she throws strikes, she gets ahead of batters. She's able to put these hitters in a difficult situation where she's kind of puts them in a situation where she forces them to guess what she's going to be throwing. So she threw five shutout innings against UCLA, last 4 appearances in the circle for 24. She's thrown 17 in the third innings, given up 1 run on just 7 hits, and that was in 2 wins over Florida, 2 wins over Duke to help get them to the Women's College World Series in Oklahoma City. But yeah, I think that Oklahoma, it is going to be a bigger test than what I think some people are giving Stanford credit for. I fully expect them to come in and compete with Oklahoma, at least at the jump, and then we'll see how that depth and talent plays out over the course of a 7-inning game. But you make a really good point, Adam. For me, it's the 2 teams in orange, Tennessee and Oklahoma State. I think that it's probably a safe bet. Oklahoma is going to get Tennessee in that second game on Friday. I think Tennessee starts off with Alabama. And Montana Fouts, is she going to start? How much of an impact is she going to have? ESPN is pushing the hell out of that narrative right now, which again, fair play to her. How she's pitching 2 or 3 weeks off of a hyperextended leg, fair play to her. But yeah, I fully expect the 2 teams in orange to give Oklahoma their toughest test, and it's just a matter of, Adam, if Oklahoma, if they're going to take a loss in a series type format, or if maybe it's going to be a bigger challenge for Oklahoma in kind of the round robin format. what do you think? Is it going to be easier to beat this OU team in a series format, or maybe the round robin is going to be these teams' best chance to get them?
I think the round robin is the best chance to get OU because
I
you're
agree.
going to see different pitchers, different styles of teams, different coaching methods day to day, other than maybe like an if necessary game where you might play the same team back to back. But otherwise, OU's got to prepare for Stanford, one day, and then they win that game 2 days later. They got to play Tennessee. Or if they lose to Stanford, then they got to turn around and play somebody the next day. So I think it's actually going to be easier to get OU in this round robin format because one, you have the best of the best teams here in Oklahoma City, but also, they're going to have to see different pitchers, and that's kind of one of the reasons that OU was so dominant throughout the season and throughout any series that they played is that the other team basically is going to run out of pitching depth for the most part compared to what OU has. So OU can get used to the one pitcher they have, figure her out, and then annihilate them at a certain point. So I do think the round robin is going to be easier. Are you kind of on the same page with that, or maybe do you have a different viewpoint?
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement with you on that. I think that the round robin format, definitely that's your best chance if you're an opposing team of trying to knock Oklahoma out of this tournament because, like we said, if Oklahoma can figure out a way to get to the championship series where you're going to be forced to beat them 2 games out of 3, Oklahoma's pitching staff is so dominant. It is so deep from top to bottom, and they're so versatile with some of the different ways that they can attack opposing teams' lineups. So again, in a best 2 out of 3 format, we've talked about it all year. I just simply don't see another team that can beat this team 2 games out of 3. You might get lucky and get them once. You might throw your ace. You might catch Oklahoma on an off day, but they're going to figure you out eventually, and they're going to be able to start, churning out runs. So I think round robin, you throw your best out there if you're Stanford, see if you can pick them off, and then see if another team can kind of come in right behind it and put the final dagger in. But I don't expect it. I think the Oklahoma's too good. They're too well coached, and they're too experienced in this type of environment. And I think that's going to go a long way in ultimately deciding the outcome of this World Series.
Well, let's do some predictions here. It sounds like you're saying OU is not going to lose at all in Oklahoma City. Are you picking them to win the entire thing undefeated?
Yeah, I think so. Again, that's so tough because you've got the best 8 teams right now in softball, and again, in this type of format, you can't predict it. I mean, it's hard to predict. Anything can happen in this type of scenario. But again, I think that it starts on Thursday. I think Oklahoma takes care of business on Saturday. I expect Tennessee to knock off Alabama in their opener on Thursday as well. So I think you're going to have OU Tennessee, and the winner of that game is really in the driver's seat in that half of the bracket. And you look downstairs, honestly, Florida State, OSU, Washington, and Utah. I think that the winner of Florida State, Oklahoma State puts themselves in a great position to get to the championship series. It would not surprise me at all if Kelly Maxwell, if the Oklahoma State Cowgirls, if they can continue to ride the momentum that they've kind of found over the last couple of weeks in postseason play, if they can figure out a way to knock off the Seminoles, I think that you could seriously, Adam, you're starting to make the case that when that championship series starts on Wednesday, June 7th, I think you've got Bedlam for the national title.
So that's your pick is Bedlam.
I'm going Bedlam for the national title. Back-to-back years where it's going to be 2 Big 12 teams fighting it out for the national championship. And again, we talk about it. The best softball is played in the state of Oklahoma. Having Bedlam, those 2 teams separated by 70 or 80 miles on the national stage with the national championship on the line, it's going to be fantastic for the state. It's going to be fantastic for the brand and fantastic for softball as a whole. So I can't wait to see how it unfolds.
That's bold because we've thought about Bedlam in the final series for a couple of years now because Oklahoma State's finally been making the World Series and it just hasn't happened yet. But yeah, you're right. This is Oklahoma State's strongest team, so we could certainly see that. Yeah, poke choke. I'm going to pick OU to make it to the championship series. I don't think I will pick OU to go undefeated to get there throughout the entire series. I think Tennessee is a formidable opponent. I think Florida State's a pretty formidable opponent. And OSU, like you mentioned, surging really strongly right now. You do have to remember that OU is currently undefeated against 5 of the 7 teams that they've played in the World Series. So it's not astronomical to think that they would just go through completely unscathed here. But I think with the round robin format, with this quality of teams that are here, and what we saw from OU just nearly losing to Clemson at home, I think OU is probably due for a loss at this point. You would just like to see that happen probably in the championship series and not before that, because like you mentioned, it's going to be really tough to work your way out of a loser bracket scenario there. And so I would like to say that I think the second best team here is Tennessee, and that's who OU is going to rematch with in the championship series. But for the reason of, hey, they're going to have to flip sides of the bracket as a loser, at least at some point, potentially, I think it's going to be really tough for them to get there at the end of the day. So I'm going to go with OU versus Florida State in the championship series. And of course, I'm picking OU to win it all at the end of the day.